All right, welcome to the Go With Your Flow podcast. I'm the host, Erin Ryan. I'm a certified Reiki master teacher, also a licensed acupuncturist. I have a master's in Oriental medicine, and I am the owner of Crystal Lake Reiki and Acupuncture. And it is my great pleasure to talk about relationships today while people are stuck at home. And so I am here to welcome Kai and Una Grace, who are spiritual advisors. They teach Reiki, they do intuitive and card readings. They are spiritual coaches for both individuals and relationships. So they have been kind enough to show up today and help all of us in relationships, whether it's, romantically or just, relationships in general, to navigate this time. I was reading up about China, and they have had like a big surge in divorce rates because of the quarantine there. So I wanted to get everybody who might be struggling right now some tools and some guidance to move through that. So thank you so much, Kai and Una. How are you guys doing?
We're good. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you don't mind just giving just a little bit of background, because I know you two have been together a long time and there was a period of time you weren't together, just so people kind of understand where you guys are coming from with your relationship.
Sure. We first met in 1996, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's when we first dated for a while.
9 months.
9 months.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And then after that, we kind of went our separate ways, and it was maybe 14 years?
Yeah, about that. 14, 15
about
years.
14 years went our separate ways, did our own thing for a while. And then 11 years ago
Mm-hmm.
is when we rediscovered each other, I guess you can say, through social media.
Uh-huh.
And
the beauty of social media.
Yeah. And then shortly after that, I was living in San Diego and Una was living in Utah. And then she came out to visit me, and we spent a week together in San Diego, and it was just this amazingly magical time in our lives.
Yeah.
It's undescribable.
Mm-hmm.
That looks like for a whole different podcast, just that week. But that just changed everything. And then we just said, we just have to be together. We have to figure out how we're going to be together. And so I moved to Utah, and the rest is history.
Well, Kai was on a run. He's a runner. He likes to do his daily jogging, and he was running in San Diego and heard just a voice. He'd never experienced anything like this. This is before both of us had any sort of spiritual awakening. And he just out of nowhere heard, "You're moving to Utah." Like, because we had thought about possibly me and the kids moving out to San Diego.
Well, there was that part of me, I was a single man living in San Diego, and very selfish, very, very selfish. And when we were talking about how we're going to make this happen, I remember Una saying that, I'll do whatever it takes. I'll move to San Diego. And I thought, wow, that's great. I don't have to do anything. I can just sit and I can wait. And she had her children. And I thought, this is going to be fantastic.
He's like, can we all fit in a 2-bedroom apartment?
So, but then, then I went on that run that day, and it just like hit me, and it was like, it all just made sense. Like her moving to San Diego was at that moment was like, I don't even know why I would even consider that. That doesn't even equate. Doesn't even make sense. So that's when I moved to Utah. Just kind of like hit me like a divine inspiration.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's when Kai's awakening started.
Yeah, I didn't know what was happening to me. I had no idea. And that when I moved to Utah, we lived in Utah for about a year. And I was absolutely crazy. I went absolutely insane.
He barely talked. He walked around very stoic and very attached to my hip, and just kind of let me lead the show, because here he is walking into an instant family, and he's never been married, never had kids. I, at that point, had been married a couple times and had a few kids. And so, I really had to just hold space for him while he was activated to that kind of energy and that kind of life.
Because what was weird about it is that I never had the thought of I'm afraid of having a family. Everything just seemed so perfect. And I knew that's exactly where I was supposed to be. So I was never like, I never had this apprehension of, oh my God, now I have a wife and children. That was never an issue. It was just my body and my soul, everything was just changing. Everything was changing, because as far as fitting into the family, we just instantly fit in. There was never an adjustment period. There was never a time where it was weird with me and the kids or anything like that. When I first moved there, I got my own little house that was just a few blocks away from them, just to sort of help the kids acclimate a little bit, but it was not necessary. And everything just melded together so perfectly. But inside, I felt like looking back on it, in hindsight, I see like I was like my soul was catching up with the rest of my body. My body said, okay, we're putting you here. Here's where you need to be. So the rest of me had to catch up. And so I was going through constant internal turmoil. And I didn't know how to talk about it. I didn't have a lot of friends, and I didn't, you know what I mean? I was somewhat social, but I kept to myself a lot, and I didn't know how to really express myself. And so I didn't know how to say, boy, I'm really feeling, you know what I mean? I'm going through a spiritual awakening right now, and I'm having a tough time. I didn't know I didn't have any of that. That language was not in my my vernacular. So I didn't know how to express what I was feeling. And I was only looking back on it that I understand what was happening. I was going through this massive awakening, and I was being prepared for what the things that were coming.
So what's interesting about that is I feel like that's exactly what's happening for a lot of people right now. Only there's more force to it because of, everything we're dealing with the pandemic. People are forced into these spaces, right, where they have to start to evolve and adapt. And so, I mean, looking back, even though you were able to choose, okay, I choose this family, I choose this woman, there was a lot of confusion, right, that came with that because you didn't fully understand what was occurring. So I guess I'm curious, how did you start to get answers with that? Like when did your clarity start to come? Did you just have to give it time and just, be, or was there some way, like process that you ended up going through?
You know where it came from with the both of us? And for some reason, ever since we were together, we always had this need to help people. I don't know where it came from. I'm not really sure. There was never a moment we just decided, hey, let's just do what we can to start helping people.
And we weren't really like that individually.
No, we weren't at all.
That kind of happened once we were together.
Yeah, because back at this time we were very heavily into. We drank a lot and we did drugs, and I mean, we still were very functioning. We were functional parents and functional people.
So we like to play.
Yeah, we like to do our thing,
Yeah.
So we were drinking a lot, and so, but still in this time, it was like we knew that we were given something very special. We just didn't know what to do with it. So we began talking about let's start making. And this is before. I mean, I guess YouTube was back then, but it wasn't like it is now. But we want to start making videos, just helping people, talking about our journey. And here we are, like, a year into our marriage, telling people how they should be doing things. But we just felt that pull, and so there's videos floating out there that are from
they're
10
really,
years ago.
really
They're
embarrassing.
Very embarrassing. But still, back then we were still very much into our sickness, into our illness, into our disease of addiction and alcohol and all that. We were still wrapped up in that. Yet the spiritual awakening thing was happening. It was coming for us
simultaneously.
Yeah. So it really was the need and the want to begin to help people that started pulling us forward into this journey. And then we got back in 2013, we both got sober and went through 12-step programs, and we did that whole deal. And that was a separate type of awakening for us. Mm-hmm. And that really launched us into a whole different realm. And we've been saying all along during this quarantine, these past few weeks, that we've been training for this for like the past 10 years. We really, really have. Mm-hmm. There's like like the Navy SEALs, they have a saying that says, like, when adversity hits and the hard time comes, you sink to the level of your training. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of where we are right now, is that we've been through a lot of difficult things in our relationship. Difficult things. Like if you sort of read the storybook of our relationship, we've been through more than a lot of couples combined in their entire marriage of 30 or 40 years. We've been in the 10 years that we've been together. We've been tested. I mean, I don't know if you want to put it that way. I don't like the word tested. Challenged. Yeah. Many times on many different levels. so this to us is
Validating.
very, very validating.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
the why, right? Like why did
Yeah.
we move
Yeah.
through all of that to now? So, and you had mentioned, I know both of you have struggled with addiction. I feel like now, because people are stuck at home, addiction is huge. Like people
Yeah.
are going back to their addictions to try to help cope and soothe and move through, whether it's drugs or alcohol or food or
Yeah.
TV or whatever else.
Mhm. I mean, it's very telling when we live in a society where liquor stores are considered essential.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
funny,
it's
but
a
it is.
business.
We
It's
have
a business
this
that
little,
has to stay open.
yeah, in our little small town, most businesses are closed. The ones that are open, there's gas stations, there's grocery store, two grocery stores, and the liquor stores. Those are the businesses that are open, and
Wow.
every time we drive by, when we go out, they're doing a window service, a drive-up window service, and they're always busy. And
Mhm. And that's no judgment.
Not
That's
at
no
all.
judgment, because we've been there and we understand that the last thing anyone needs to deal with right now is alcohol withdrawal.
Mhm.
But I definitely feel that this quarantine is an awakening for the planet. It's an awakening, for the people. And what you go through during this time, um, our vices and what we rely on and how we have navigated our life thus far is right in our face. And it's providing this amazing opportunity to be able to shed the coping mechanisms that we have used thus far, and really start to live more in our sovereignty, self-sufficiency, cleaner, healthier, happier lives. But with that said, it is a very challenging journey to get there. So I can imagine we're feeling the energy of our community. We're feeling the energy of the planet. We both are energy readers. And so we can feel this heaviness of people suffering. And it's a journey. I would say that to anyone listening, whatever you're going through, whether it's addiction or relationship issues or poverty or, anything, it's presenting itself to you so that you can heal through it. But it's a journey. And like us, getting clean and sober, that was grueling and challenging. And we had to relearn how to do everything. Neither of us had been sober since we were 14 years old. So we were going on, 20 years of always having sex while on a substance, always having hard communications while on a substance, always having happy, joyous times while on a substance. We had to relearn how to do life completely through that sobriety, including our relationship. It's had to reinvent over and over and over again. And so during this quarantine time, with people having these issues coupled with trying to find common ground with their partners or just who they're quarantined with, right? I mean, I feel like who we're quarantined with is exactly who we're supposed to be quarantined with. There is no chance or coincidence. It is literally a divine plan. Whoever you are stuck in your homes with is who you're supposed to be with. And I know that there's abuse going on, and domestic violence has skyrocketed, and child abuse and all of that. So I'm not trying to be cold or shallow or, inconsiderate to any of that. But who we are quarantined with, it's showing us exactly what kind of life we want to live. And so if you are in those situations that are abusive or even unpleasant or unsatisfying, you're seeing what your worth is and how you want to live your life. Many people are saying, when I get out of this, I am, leaving this relationship, or I'm not going back, or I'm going to quit this addiction, or whatever, right? We're being faced with what we want to do with our lives from this point on. And now is the time to start changing that, modifying that, and taking the steps to get to the place you want to be at.
Yeah, and we're also we're really being forced to understand how to truly live in the moment. And that it's so cliche, because it's funny, because you've been hearing that probably for so many people, so many different ways, for so many different reasons for the last probably 20 years, live in the moment, da, 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 da. And then it's like, this is what it's talking about, because nobody has any certainty as to what's going to happen tomorrow. And so all the plans that you are trying to make for your life that you don't know. Maybe I'll wait till I have more money, or wait till I have a different job, or wait till I'm a little happier, or wait till I'm this, wait till I'm that, to do that thing, or to take that, whatever it is. We're learning that we have to just do it. We have to do it now, because we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. Literally, we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. And the idea is, like Una was saying, just to expound upon that for a minute, is like everything in life is about relationships. Everything. It's about the relationships to your family, to your spouse, to your coworkers, but ultimately it comes back to the relationship with yourself. And that is what we learned going through getting through the 12-step programs and the sobriety process was just sort of a springboard for us. Understand, and everybody always said when we were going through this together and getting sober together, everybody said, like, oh, people just can't do this. This is really difficult. You guys are doing it. They were always saying, like, good for you guys, but there was always an undertone of, you're just not going to make it. I'm sorry, these couples just don't make it in this program.
Yeah.
And I know why, because that work, just like spiritual work, there's so much individual work that has to happen that you can get lost in that. You can get lost in what you're doing with yourself and forget that you have a spouse that you have to either repair things with or integrate with. And that's something that we never really lost sight of that. We always really, really kept that in our main focus, each other. But that's the same thing. That's with everything, but especially nowadays in this quarantine situation, when you're with your family, you're in the close quarters all the time. It really is important to work on the relationship with yourself, and to really, whatever the things are making you happy, whatever can make your give you calm and give you peace, those are the things you should be doing on a daily basis, because you've got plenty of time to do them, and then use that energy to spend with your family. It's because it is easy when you're sitting around all day and you think you have all this time in the world. It's easy for everyone to go off in their own little rooms and do their own little thing, and next thing you know, it's 8 o'clock at night, time to go to bed. You go to sleep, you get up, you do the whole thing over again. But this time really is about focusing on relationships.
Well, and I think that, oh, go ahead.
All right. No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I feel like there's a lot of blame too. Like, if you guys can talk a little bit about that, like being in a closed quarters like this, it's very easy to miss the internal work and to just blame everything on the other person, especially if you're used to doing that. So do you have anything, any thoughts on that, as far as if you catch yourself just blaming the other person for all of the stuff that you're feeling right now? It's a quick, dirty, and easy way to blow off steam and to move those energies out of your body. So if you guys have any ideas about how you can kind of bring it back to self, that would be lovely.
Lots of ideas.
I knew it.
That's a very, very important topic.
That is such an important topic, because one of the things that Kai and I have been learning, and it's always a learning process. I think there's layers to everything. And so we're constantly learning new layers to which we look to the other to make us feel whole and secure and validated and vindicated and all of those great things. When we first got together, we were living completely victims. We were victims to our childhood, victims to our life, victims to addiction, victims to self-harm, victims to society in general. This person's doing something to me, and they're hurting me, and they're affecting me, and why does this keep happening? And that's the life that we led. And together, if I left a room during an argument, then Kai's feeling abandoned, and how can you abandon me? How can you leave? Or if Kai gets angry, I'm like, oh, I've dealt with anger in my past, I'm not dealing with that now, right? So there was this constant, you're doing this to me, therefore you're not fulfilling in me what I need. It's that expectation of putting people in this place of authority over your feelings, in this place of it's such a high obligation to put on somebody to say, you are responsible for how I feel. You're responsible for how my future goes, or how my day goes, or how my moments go. And we have had to learn that the only person responsible for how we feel is ourselves. And also, whatever I'm wanting Kai to do, I should be doing for him. And I think that's the main lesson that I've learned, is that if I'm wanting more affection, if I'm wanting more attention, I cannot just sit there and wait for it. I have to go get the attention and match that energy in him to pull it out. I see that in relationships all the time, and I can only see it because I've done it over and over throughout my life, that I wish you were this, or I wish you were more that, or, you know, whatever. Or even if you're dealing with issues of, you know, lying, cheating, being rude or unkind to one another, whatever it is, there is this, kind of lost my train of thought. There's this place where we want to blame the other for how, you know, we're feeling, or what we are getting, or what we're not getting. And so, you know, through the course of our lives together, we've had to learn that whatever it is that I am desiring, I need to go and seek that within him, and ask him for it, you know, communicate those needs to him, ask him if he can be more affectionate, or I would rather you this, or why do you do that? Even, you know, just having an open dialogue about why we do the things we do, and getting to the core of what makes us tick, what makes us work, what makes us operate.
Yeah. And really understanding that everything that we're playing out in our relationships, you know, especially when we're fighting, but just in general, what we're playing out in our relationships, it all stems from our childhood. It all stems from the things that we learned as children. And then as we grow up, we continue to play those scenarios over and over and over again. And really what you're working on, what you're working off of is memories. Because the reality of it is that if you can get to a place where you can get to a place, I should say, when you can wake up every day and you can wake up to a brand new person lying next to you in bed. Because honestly, if you can clean the slate of the day before, clean the slate of the year before, clean the slate of the past 40 years of your life, if you can clean that slate and understand that if you wake up, you know, because most of the time, if you have an argument with your spouse and you wake up the next day, for about the first 3 or 4 seconds you're awake, you don't think about it. Then it hits you, then it all comes back, then the anger comes back, and then you're right back on track where you were when you went to sleep. As opposed to waking up with a brand new energy and new thoughts, understanding that all your spouse was doing, or your partner, or whatever relationship it is, all they were doing is they were triggering old memories in you. They were pulling up old pain for you, and that's what you were responding to. So it's like, if I get angry during a fight with Una, I'm allowed to get angry, but what she was reacting to was all the anger that she's had to deal with in her past. And so that doesn't give me a right to express my anger, to be angry, to move through it for about 10, 15 seconds, and then it's over. And that's the thing that we notice with each other, and that's been the biggest help for us when it comes to us getting into arguments and things, is understanding that if I just allow her to go through what she needs to go through in that moment, it will pass. I'd be there. I'm with her to support her in the feelings. And then we move right through it. We move through it in about literally 30 seconds, sometimes a minute, sometimes a couple of minutes of conversation, as opposed to me having this visceral reaction and then me outwardly expressing the way I'm feeling, because now she's making me feel a certain way and now I'm making her feel a certain way, and it goes back and forth, and then it just explodes.
I think it's important too to realize that we project our stuff onto our partners, our children, our relationships in general. We project our stuff onto them as a manipulation to get them to respond in the way that we think or thought or fear that they're going to anyway. Mm-hmm. We have this ability. I mean, that's why when people say, I want to learn how to instantly manifest, we're constantly saying you do instantly manifest. Instant manifestation is just innate to you as a human being, as a spirit, as a soul. You have that ability. Look at the life around you. You have actually manifested everything in your environment. And the same applies to your relationship. There are times where just stuff comes up in me and I'm starting to feel insecure about whatever it may be for the day. I'm having anxieties about whatever. Just wounds are trying to surface so that I can heal them. And I will manipulate the situation in Kai to provoke something in him to help activate that. And it's almost like it's really good intention behind it, but it's a negative, unhealthy behavior that's projecting it. So you can have the same outcome, by going to your partner and saying, look, I have these things coming up. And I know it's hard for people to communicate that too. Sometimes you can't identify what is actually going on within you. You're just feeling these yucky feelings and you're wanting to get rid of them. But if you can get to a point where you can say, you know what, I don't even know what this is. I'm just really insecure that you're going to this or you're going to that, or I'm feeling like you don't feel this or you don't feel that. In that dialogue, you can realize that it's actually you feeling that, and your partner probably isn't feeling that at all. But just bringing it up and communicating that this is how I'm feeling, and give your partner the opportunity to respond to it from their point of view and work through it that way is a lot more effective. But again, it takes it back to the personal responsibility and validating yourself and healing, yourself and looking toward yourself for your answers instead of from your partner. We just put too much pressure on the relationships around us. We do it to everyone around us, whether, again, like Kai was saying, whether it's in our employer, our children, our partners, our friendships, our community. We expect them to do something for us that we are not doing for ourselves. And when they don't, we're disappointed. When they don't, our feelings are hurt, or we're devastated or whatever, right? Because we have projected what we need onto someone else that they may not have that need, so they don't know how to do it. They don't think to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's especially true, as little people with our family members, because we're actually conditioned to expect certain things, right? So if somebody is your mother versus, your brother, there's a massive difference in what your expectations are. And so more times than not, unfortunately, they're going to let you down in some way. And then that continues on. And then, you look at your romantic relationships, there's this expectation for that person to be everything for you and vice versa. And it's not sustainable.
Yeah. And it's also this expectation, because when we are growing up, we grew up on that sort of reward system, you know what I mean? Where we get rewarded for the good and you get punished for the bad. We grew up on that. And all of those rewards come from external places. They come from our parents saying that you did a good job, or it comes from a school system, whatever it is. So we grow up looking for all of this external stimulation. And then all of a sudden you realize that, that's what we were going through before we really had our big spiritual awakening, is that you're just looking for external stimulation. Then the people who are closest to you are the ones that you were taught are supposed to give you the external stimulation. They're supposed to validate you. They're supposed to give you the rewards when you do something good.
And then sometimes they do give you and match you exactly what you need. And then you expect it from that point on.
Right. Exactly.
And that's a trap.
Yeah.
Well, remember that one time when I came to you and I needed this and you did exactly what you were supposed to? You're not doing that anymore. You've changed.
Yeah. And you hear those people like I don't know what people I'm talking about, but y'all have heard somebody say at some point, like, oh, I take care of my kids or whatever. And you're like, you're supposed to take care of your kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't get a reward for doing the things you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. I come home. I don't cheat on my wife.
Right, you're not
I bring
supposed
home
to
the
cheat
money.
on your wife. Right. And it's like they use what you're supposed to be doing on a regular basis to sustain the relationship and say, this relationship is good enough because I take care of the kids, because I go to work, because I don't cheat on you, because I don't beat you, whatever it is. And all the things, that's the base level right there. It's people living below the line and saying, at least I reach the line sometimes in some aspects of my life. But I believe when you have awakenings and you begin to really kick your life into overdrive and get the things you really want, is when you start living above that line.
Actualizing your potential.
Yeah, using that line as a bottom and working your way up from there.
Mm-hmm.
That's the main thing. That's in our experience, in my experience personally, especially, that once you cross that line, that's when all the things begin to happen. That's when you begin to change your perspective. And that's when you really begin to understand, like Una was saying, manifestation, and understand you can manifest things in your life that you want, whether it be in a relationship or otherwise. You can manifest everything that you want. Mm-hmm. But when you're living below the line, it just seems like life is happening to you because you continue to manifest same things over and over again.
Yes, and realizing that I have to reiterate, you are still manifesting what you want, even if it's bad. There is something in you that wants that, needs that, because it's what you're used to, or because, you've convinced yourself that's all you're worth. So you're wanting that argument, you're wanting that fight, you're wanting that disagreement. You see what I'm saying?
Right. You want to understand that every single thing that you say, and even the things that you think, everything essentially is a prayer.
Yes.
When you say, God, my life sucks, that is a signal that you are sending out, saying my life sucks. And so then you are being matched with my life sucks.
Mm-hmm.
So every thought that you have and every way you express that energetically or verbally or whatever it is, you're just being matched by what you're putting out.
Right. And I think too, that can be a place for people to judge themselves where, oh, I'm not thinking good thoughts. I'm having bad thoughts. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm messing it up. And that actually gets them tangled more into it. What I have discovered is just to come into a state of allowance and like zero suppression. So I have the vulnerability of going, okay, I do feel like my life sucks at this moment, for instance. Okay, now what? Like, let's move past that. Is that really true? Like, I question, I accept the me that feels that way or felt that way in the past. And then it creates this space so that there's not judgment. I think that I've worked with a lot of people who say they do a lot of affirmations or they try to control their thoughts versus giving, connecting to themselves and really moving through the pain. And I think especially right now, we're all being challenged to be with our pain. So it's just to not get stuck.
It's kind of the area that you discussed. There's like these three parts to this process of sort of turning your life around into creating more of what you want. And that first stage, you're kind of like on a freight train, and you've built so much momentum in the direction of, what's driving that train is your trauma and your wounds and the life experiences that you've gone through that's driving that. It's built so much momentum. So you say you don't have your first kind of awakening to this till you're 30. You've had 30 years of this train blowing through life, going at a certain speed, gaining more and more steam and momentum. And then you have that moment right there that you just explained, Erin, about, sort of pausing and going, okay, wait, I don't like this. I feel horrible. My life actually sucks. And whatever, you do have to sit there, because that's where that train starts to slow down and lose momentum. You cannot just turn a freight train right around. It doesn't spin around like a car. You have to slow it down. And it's in that moment where you're slowing down and observing your thoughts and feeling through them and analyzing what's going on and recognizing, right, what has taken place to this point. That's where it starts to slow down. Then you can start to reverse that and go backwards and begin to adopt new habits and behaviors and have your awakenings. And you're still going to fall back into the trap of the mind of wanting to pull you back into those experiences. And in those trapped moments, you identify them, observe them, just like you said, and realize, like, look, I'm doing it again. I don't want to do it again. I'm okay though. I'm, self-talk, positive talk, whatever, feel it, lean into it. And then again, start to change that momentum in the other direction. It's a journey. It takes time. It takes a lot of work and time. And I think that pause is probably the most profound moment when you are sitting with it and realizing, yeah, things do suck, and not judging it and not suppressing it and just feeling it. And that can take as long as you need it to take. There's no judgment on that either.
Yeah, that's actually a great top thing to bring up right now, because that's what I would imagine a lot of people
this is the pause.
are experiencing right now, is that so many people right now are probably on that freight train, heading the direction they don't want to head, but they're forced to just be on it. And then they say, well, what can I do? You know what I mean? What can I do? And I believe the answer
we have
is
a tendency to do what we know has worked to this point, even if it's totally sucked.
Absolutely.
We just keep doing what we know works. This is how you control, right?
But everybody has those things in their life where they say, I just want to start. I just want to start meditating every day. I just want to start running every day. I just want to start cooking or creating. Or everybody has a few of those things. And now is the time to begin those things, because doing those things takes a little bit of self-discipline. And when you begin to self-discipline yourself in those ways and feed yourself in those ways, then you'll begin to slow that freight train down. then it starts to slow down, because I believe you have to start with kind of the outside stuff, because that's sort of the outside things will create the inner environment, if that makes sense.
And in to out,
right.
Simultaneous.
It's cyclical, but
Yeah.
for us as human beings, it's easier for us to begin with something externally. So begin with something that a passion of yours that you want to start writing or
yeah, I like to
whatever.
equate things to like weight loss. I don't know why I use this analogy all the time with my clients. Like if you want to, that outside influence, like Kai was saying, is, the extra weight or getting soft or whatever, and we're not eating healthy. And so you decide and you go in your outside environment and you start to, do shopping or join a gym or, get some running shoes to walk or whatever. Those are the sort of outside influences, and then the inside change comes through that journey of seeing the pounds come off or the muscles start to gain. But it's a journey, and it's painful sometimes, and you get tired, and some days you don't feel like doing it and whatever, but you have to set that goal for yourself, whatever it may be, and keep it simple and focus on it and do your journaling and meditate on it and pray on it, and just like you should in every situation. And you're going to see the results eventually. But I think weight loss or exercise is such a good tangible analogy, because we all strive to be healthier and look better and whatever. So that works for me sometimes to see it that way, that it takes time. You're not going to drop 20 pounds overnight. So if you do that one thing with your partner or any relationship that they want you to do or they need you to do, or you want to change within yourself or whatever, you will begin the process of doing that. And you're not going to see the results of this very strong, committed relationship. It takes time to create that new bond and to create new habits within each other, and just have fun with it.
And there are very specific actions that take place within these things. Like going back to the exercise analogy, it's a really good one, because you can go out and you can buy the new clothes. That's easy. You can go out and you can join the gym and pay the membership. That's easy. You can do all the easy things. But then when you go and you get to the gym and you're standing there, then the work begins. And that's most things. People are really good at preparing. People are really good at having ideas
Our survival
and
instinct.
beginning and setting it all up. But the actual moving forward with it, that's where most of us stop, because it gets hard.
Yeah, because we put an expectation.
Yes.
Because I don't know about you, but every time we go on one of those really long walks, I come home and I expect to be like in a different pant size. You know what I mean? Like,
I know what you mean.
That was really hard. My body hurts. I'm like feeling like I burned some calories, but my pants are still tight.
Yeah.
You have to really push through those, the awkwardness of, getting from point A to point B.
And
to
then
reap the reward.
continuing the behavior over and over until it becomes a habit.
A new momentum.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it becomes part of your life.
Oh, we lost your audio.
Uh-oh.
There we go.
Okay.
Sorry. Do you have any suggestions for people who they're like, okay, so I have this time now. There are things that I want to start to do, and there are things, but I can't seem to get myself to do them. Do you have any suggestions for how to start to work with themselves so that maybe they can start taking those steps? Because like you said, you can't go from, we've got this freight train of momentum, right? And so all of a sudden, let's say eating's a really easy one. People are eating poorly normally. Now you're stuck indoors. People are eating out of boredom or stress or anxiety, and they want to eat better. They want to do better. And so that's kind of the first part of the question. The second part is, what if, say, you want to do those things, but the person that you're, at home with doesn't? Do you have any suggestions about that too?
Yeah, those are good.
Yeah. See, I would say, first of all, everybody's a little bit different. I think everybody operates a little bit differently. Some people, if you have these sort of things you want to start doing, I would say to some people, just literally do them all in one day. And if you miss the next day, then the day after that, do them all again. Mm-hmm. Some people, I would say, pick one and just do one every day. It just sort of depends upon how you do things,
It's like you have the inspiration, but then you have to take action, and then you create change.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about action. You cannot think about it. I don't know how many times I've caught myself thinking I meditate every day, like because it's so part of my life and has been for so long. And then I realized I haven't meditated in like 2 weeks, but I think I have. Our mind plays tricks on us to where, it's like this everyday routine, and then you start to slough off a little, and then you're like, you just literally think you're still doing it.
Right,
It's such a weird thing that the mind does. And you're like, wait, how long has it been since I've actually done whatever it is that I need to do?
Yeah. As human beings, we have this gift to adjust to anything that's happening in our lives.
Acclimate.
And the first couple, maybe first week or something of this quarantine, first week or two, whatever, it was sort of like, it was almost exciting. What's going to happen? You know what I mean? All this uncertainty. But then all of a sudden you started kind of like getting into a groove of it. And that's what we do, is that's how we adapt, and that's how we continue to, not go crazy, because we acclimate to our surroundings, even if our surroundings get really, really bad. Because you look at some people who are in very bad situations, living situations, relationship situations, those didn't happen overnight. They happened very, very slowly. You know what I mean? The de-evolution just started little by slowly. And then all of a sudden one day you're in this place and you're like, God, how did I get so far down? But you realize it was a very slow, gradual thing. And that's kind of how it is now. It's very slow and gradual. So what you have to realize, you have to first identify your patterns, understand what are your daily patterns that you're doing. Are you just, waking up and then having breakfast and then watching TV and then whatever, next thing you know, it's 8 o'clock and you're watching more TV and you're going to bed. Is it the same routine? Identify those routines and those patterns, and then start interjecting things that you want to do. Like I said, even if it is just take an hour a day, like commit an hour a day for yourself to do something, and then that brings us to the other part of it. What if your partner doesn't want to do those things?
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty simple. It's like, find out the things you guys want to do together. If there's something that you want to do, because I'll sometimes I'll go for a jog by myself. Sometimes we'll go for walks
absolutely
together.
Despise jogging.
Right. I like jogging, but I also like when we all go for walks as a family.
I ain't running unless someone's chasing me.
Yeah, so
and
I'll
maybe
do
not
that.
even then.
And then, but I'll go off and I'll have a jog by myself, or we'll both do a meditation or some breathing exercises by ourselves. But there's also tons of things we like to do together. We like to do everything together, and that's just how we are. And I think that's the bigger point here, is that whenever we talk to anybody about relationships and our relationships and whatever it is, everybody's different. You have to find your own little niche within your relationship. There are people who would look at our relationship and think that we're crazy. And it's like, why would you want to be around each other? I talk to people who say, like, I could never work with my spouse. I love my spouse. We have a great relationship, but I could never work with them because I need that time to myself. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. That's their dynamic. That's their thing. I don't understand that, because if I had my way, we would work together constantly, doing everything together. Everything that we do, every new adventure, every new thing that we come up with, we just do it together. That's what we've always been. But that's our relationship. So it's really a matter of finding out the dynamics in your relationship. And it could be as simple as, what's something that you would want to do together? And maybe it doesn't even have to be something huge. Maybe, you know what I mean? Maybe, but it could be something fun too.
Because that's how all things start, right? You have little community clubs, and people come together for gardening or book studies, or, single parent play dates with their kids, whatever. You find your common ground. And from there, they discover all of the possibilities of their newfound friendship based on that one thing that they had in common. They find out they had similar childhoods or similar, journeys in life, or maybe they both struggle with the same thing, and you evolve. That's what we do as humans. We are not made to stay the same. We're not. We are created to outgrow every situation that we're ever in. We're created to outgrow our relationships. Mm-hmm. We're created to outgrow hobbies and desires and jobs and all of that. That is what we should constantly be evolving. And so how does that apply to relationships? Kai and I have literally reinvented ourselves a million times throughout the past 11 years. We didn't outgrow each other because we both stopped drinking. We found out who we were sober together and then built on that. We didn't, so we outgrew our relationship over and over and over again, and then just reinvented what that looks like now and built upon that.
And that gets very scary.
It's very scary.
Very scary when you realize that you're outgrowing where you were,
Yeah, like in sobriety, we had huge fears. Like everyone was telling us, well, that's cute, but, you guys probably won't make it. And, you'll just have to be okay with that. And I remember thinking sobriety is ruining my marriage. I remember saying that to my sponsor and her laughing and saying, well, it's okay. You're growing and you're evolving. And if you guys break up, then that's what was supposed to be. And I just remember feeling this gut feeling in my solar plexus that that's not how I'm going to go. That's not how we're going to go. But because we had to relearn everything, we had to relearn how to communicate and how to play and how to, have fun together and how to have sex. We had to literally reinvent everything that we did. And it was a very awkward, clumsy, stressful at times, terrifying at times experience. But at the end of the day, and not even every day, but when we could, crawl our way back together, we did. And then we built upon that.
Yeah. And, sexuality is a big one. And I know we'll keep it PG for your show. I don't know what kind of listeners you have, Erin, but it's a very, very, very important topic. That's one thing. That's a really good place to start. Right now, we're talking about things you can do together. To begin to explore your sexuality with your partner is probably the most amazing journey that you can take with somebody else.
And that doesn't necessarily mean sex or intercourse.
It has very, very little
to do.
Sexuality. Well, it has a lot to do with it, but not only to do with actual sexual intercourse. Because again, like we were talking about before, beginning to understand your own sexuality, and then how your sexuality fits with your partner's sexuality, and then the things that you can do together sexually in your sexual energy, I should say,
physical, mental, emotional, spiritual sexuality,
are endless.
Yeah,
and that's such a great place to start, because you're starting from a place of really great vulnerability, and it's difficult. And when you can within sexuality, you can begin to trust each other. You can begin to trust yourself. You can begin to learn about each other.
Connect.
And how you communicate in that way, non-verbally. Mm-hmm. And then eventually, if you continue those types of practices, that will begin to bleed out into your everyday relationship with each other. Mm-hmm. And then those two things will be reflecting each other constantly. And one will always enhance the other, and the other will enhance the one. And it's constantly cyclical with that.
Could be a whole podcast on that too.
Could be a whole podcast on this, and
Let's
especially,
do it.
Yeah, honestly, especially about getting sober, and the way our sexuality was when we were before we got sober was like mind blowing, like crazy, like unbelievable. And then we got sober, and it was like, what the hell happened to our lives? You know what I mean? Like, what's happening? And we had like Una was saying, we had to relearn everything about our bodies,
and it took years.
It really took years.
It was not an easy task. It took years of individual work together, working together. It took years, and it continues to evolve.
Yeah,
but
it doesn't
took a
take
really long
years
time
for it to get good, because you can make that happen pretty quickly, but it does take. I mean, it's gonna constantly be evolving. That's the thing. It's never gonna change, and it's always gonna get better and get different and just change and continue to evolve. But you have I don't want to say you have to work at it. You have to practice it. You have to practice it on a regular basis. You have to understand how it feels, how your sexuality feels, how your partner's sexuality feels, and how it feels together. And that is what's going to kind of teach you where to go and how to really define your sexuality within the two of you.
Yeah.
Where you are right now currently.
Well, and I think too, sexuality is a great place to start because it connects you to your body.
Yes.
And it pulls you out of your head finally. And like you said, you can come from the space of vulnerability, and it's very sensory, and, it involves all of you. So I think that's a really great thing. And, people in romantic relationships, that's part of it. So it's a way that, like you said, you can do things together. There you go.
That's a great point, because one of our human needs our basic human needs is connection. And, we get that through anger. You can get a lot of reason people get angry is because they feel so connected to themselves, and you can get that same connection, but I promise you, it's like 1,000,000 times better when you are exploring your sexuality, the connection to yourself, and then you can actually connect to your partner, and that will fulfill that need like nothing else can.
And it is important to mention that there will be those times where you're trying to reinvent your sexuality together, and it becomes awkward or uncomfortable.
It sucks.
And that sucks.
Yeah.
So let's try it again tomorrow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or later today. And so don't give up on it. Just continue to just enjoy your humanity. You know, we flop and fall on our face a million times throughout this life. And it's not about the flopping. It's about getting up and, you know, practicing it again. It's just like yoga, right? Why do I don't even work out. And I use working out as an analogy all the time, but it's like yoga, you know, you're trying to do whatever pose, you know, and you've been working on it for months and you fall over and, you know, you're unbalanced and whatever, but you nail it. And when you nail it, then you have something to, I guess that was kind of a bad word to use in this interesting choice of words.
That was perfect.
But you nail it and you land that pose. And, you know, from there you build upon that and you show yourself and prove to yourself that you have the ability to accomplish it.
I think it's just so much of it's about enjoying the process. Because like you
Right.
said, our
Yeah.
nature is to grow. We're never going to stop growing. You know, a flower doesn't say, oh, I'm super beautiful, so I guess I'll just stop being beautiful, or, you know, it just
Exactly.
keeps growing. So I think that's what I've learned. You know, the mind is very focused on goals and external, you know, products or things or, you know, tangibles. And it's like, no, we're constantly in process. So if we learn ourselves enough how to love that and really enjoy it, and like you said, like the highs and the lows, like get in there, get dirty with it, like have fun with all the textures and colors, then we're just like these little kids. I love watching, you know, my daughter, because she's only one right now, and so everything is exploration for her. Everything's just sensory, and she's very present and reminds me to just like enjoy what's right in front of me and what's occurring. And too, I love when you talked about relearning. And I think that that's what we're doing right now, is we have finally the space and the time to relearn everything and to be curious.
Or
me,
to remember.
curiosity, yeah, there you go.
Remembering. Because we are that at our core, right? We are open and expansive and explorative and curious and inspired.
Right, like your daughter,
at our
we
core.
were all that.
We are. We
point.
just need to remember that it's still there. It hasn't been lost. It's not broken. It's there. And it may feel broken. It may feel broken for a lot of people, especially right now, but it's the process of remembering, or remembering what we're really made of, who we truly are at our core.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you both so much for doing this. This was amazing. I would love to have you back on again. You guys are just a wealth of so much guidance and knowledge. I've been following you guys for probably a few years now. And I've just really enjoyed, like, just the amount of vulnerability has been very inspiring to me, watching both of you just show up continually and to just be who you really are and not be afraid to, you know, explore all of that. So thank you so very much. I want to let everybody know that you can find Una and Kai on their Facebook page, which is Una Kai, so UNAKAI. So if you want to hop onto Facebook, you know, like their page, I think they've got some information there too if you want to connect with them. But gosh, thank you. I'm just so grateful.
Well, thanks for having us. This is very, very exciting and a very much needed break in everything that's going on. So
yeah, definitely.
It's been wonderful.
Yep. And I think it's really going to help. I mean, it is going to help a lot of people to navigate these very muddy waters right now, so we can actually enjoy this process and become more us, you know?
Right. Definitely. Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I'll talk to you guys later.
Thanks, Erin.
Sounds good.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Erin.
Have a great day. Enjoy. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.